Becoming an executive director, that's a huge deal. That must have come with huge pressure. I know you said, 500 million, there was somebody else with $1 billion. That's still a lot of money. 500 million is not small change.
You managed $500 million, that's so much. In my head, I was like, well, at Goldman, there are other people who had like 2 billion. I'm always looking ahead. So I've got to $500 million. How do I get to $1 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion?
Okay. Your work ethic, where does that come from?
I think I like to work. There are certain things that I want to have achieved before I leave here. I wasn't going until I'd hit my targets. If I say I'm going to do something, it will happen.
Was there any financial tools or strategies that your clients had access to at Goldman?
A lot of wealthy people play the stock market slightly different. When you see how wealthy people are building their portfolios, it's not just stocks and shares. I also believe there is a reason that wealthy people are able to keep getting continually wealthy. It's because they have access to investments that other people don't have.
Turning your salary into assets, right? Where should they start?
My view is controversial. Wealthy people do this too.
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
When you grow up in ends, you don't realise it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have a special guest in the building. We have Ayesha, who's a multi-award-winning businesswoman, property investor, angel investor, and the founder and CEO of Propelle, a female-focused investment platform. Propelle's mission is to help women understand the value of wealth building and inspire confidence to take action. Ayesha has previously held roles in Morgan Stanley's real estate investing and investment banking teams, and at Goldman Sachs, where she was an executive director and private wealth advisor to ultra high net worth individuals, managing over $500 million of client assets. Ayesha, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very well.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I've been following your journey and you're doing amazing things. And I think we're going to learn a lot from you and take a little bit of value from you. I'm actually starting the podcast a little bit differently than I usually do. So we'll see how this goes, right?
Okay.
So you sat in rooms where people talk casually about millions. What was the moment you first realized I belong here too?
I say it was probably when I started investing myself. I am what I call a late bloomer. Even though there are obviously people who start a lot later than me, but I think it was just with hindsight, given that my job every day was investing money for people, the fact that I didn't start earlier, when I think about it, I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. But I guess I was just busy. So for me, it wasn't until I started investing my own money and actually really building my wealth that I suddenly was like, okay, now I'm actually making money, but like proper money. And so then once I started to do that, it was sort of like, okay, well, I can see how that money I put in has turned into this. And now if I work on this, I can see how it can turn into that. And so then I started to like connect the dots and almost form a path where I could see myself getting to like the kinds of levels of some of my clients. And I was like, I can do this. Whereas before it was sort of like, I was just going to work. I was earning a salary, spending a lot of it, saving a little bit, but not really enough to move the needle. Like my salary wouldn't have made me wealthy. It was only after I started investing. And then I started to think about having a plan in terms of, okay, invest this money, it grows to this. Then I use that to do this. And then I use that to do this. And then I could see how it was accumulating.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I started investing myself.
That's interesting. You're managing 500 million. You're making all this money for all these people. And then, because, a lot of people think that people work in financial services, because I work in financial services, like an accounting firm, one of the big four. And I think a lot of people assume that all of us are just always into personal finance and investing the money and doing that.
Not at all. I've actually found that people in financial services are doing as little as everybody else. And you'd be surprised, but when you go to them, they're like, oh, I know I should do it, but it's time. It's usually time.
Yeah. Gosh, so interesting. It's interesting. I definitely want to unpack more about that. So I read, right, in a newspaper that your mum supported, you getting your degrees, or she held multiple jobs to enable you to get your degree. What do you feel like the impact was of that? And how do you think it shaped where you are today?
So it was actually school.
Okay.
So I went to private school.
Oh, wow.
And my mum, so I started going to private school, I think I was about 7. And my mum used to work really hard, like different jobs to be able to afford it. And then I went to a very good secondary private school. Then it was more like, you know, they have scholarships and things like that. Like you do a test, and if you do so well, then, you know, they either subsidize the fees or you don't pay any at all. So what she did was she worked to be able to afford to send me to private school when I was young. And for me, that really set the foundations. At uni, I took out a loan and then she forced me to get a job. That was quite something. My very first job, it was Peter Jones in Sloane Square. So it's like John Lewis.
Okay.
And I remember, I will never forget this. I was in the kitchenware department and we were in the basement. And I remember I go in, I tidy up my section, do everything because I'm so diligent. Then I say to my manager, okay, I'm done. Now what do I do? She's like, stand and wait. I'm like, stand and wait for what? She's like, customers. I'm like, but what if none come? Can I at least go around the store and find them, bring them to? She's like, no, we just stand and wait. And I'm like, can I sit down? She's like, no. And I was like, hold on a second. You want me to stand here all day and just wait for somebody to come because they might want to buy a pot? I was like, I can't do it. I think I lasted 2 months. And also, but it did something to me. It made me realize that retail wasn't for me. So I was like, I have to do well at uni. I have to get the grades that I need because like standing all day, no, I take my hat off to anyone who works in retail. I've
done it before.
I can't. It's really tough. So I was like, I am determined. I am going to get this degree. I'm going to get a job where I can sit. And that is, you know, it sort of fulfills me mentally as well.
But you ended up studying physics, right?
I studied physics.
That's correct,
yeah.
right? So how did you go from that to investment banking? It's like two different worlds, right?
Yeah. I've always loved math. Numbers are my thing. And this is going to sound a bit weird. And I don't want to make myself out to be this like crazy, geeky, weird person, but
it's okay. We geeks on the podcast, man. We geeks.
I don't know. It's just like when I look at a problem, a mathematical problem, like just everything makes sense and I can immediately like unravel it. So for me, like there was nothing better than like solving a mathematical equation and you've done pages of algebra and it's like you're using letters. You're not even using numbers at this point. And it just, you look at it and it just all makes sense and it's beautiful. And I don't know, it was just my thing. So I love to solve problems mathematically. And that's what physics is, right? So I actually wanted to do a PhD. And then my mum wasn't having it. She's like, you told me you were signing up for a bachelor's. Then you extended for another year and did a master's. Now you're telling me you want to extend some more and take on more debt. Because I took out the student loans, right, to pay for this. And then when she told me to get a job to subsidize it, as I said, it didn't work. I couldn't do it. And so she's like, you're not taking out more debt to now do a PhD to then do what? And she used to say things to me like, you know, there are real world problems out there. How is this going to pay bills for you? And at that point, I wasn't really thinking about that. I wanted to solve the problems of the universe. I was, I don't know, maybe a little bit like away with the fairies. But then I remember one day some of my friends were going to these sessions that universities have where like corporates come and they teach you about different jobs and things like this. And some of my friends were going to a Credit Suisse session. I had no idea what Credit Suisse was, thought they made cheese and legitimately no idea. And some of my friends were going, they're like, oh, I should come. I'm like, no, I'll just meet you guys later. They're like, no, they're giving away free stuff. You get like free cups, free popcorn makers, free this. Free popcorn maker? Sign me up. So this was before you could buy popcorn in a bag. Like this is when you had to like buy the seeds and, you know, pop it yourself.
And do it in the microwave.
Yes, I'm giving my age away. So I went for my free popcorn maker. And I'm like, well, I might as well sit here now. And then they started to talk about this thing called investment banking. What I heard is investment banking, you don't need to know anything beforehand. We'll teach you everything you need to know and we're going to pay you very well. The first thing that was in my mind is, oh my gosh, my mum is going to be so happy. And so I was like, I remember going back, Googling like top 10 investment banks. How do I apply for an internship? I literally just applied for the top 10 in the order that Google gave it to me. Got offers to all 10. And then I was stuck choosing between Goldman and Morgan Stanley. And then I went to Morgan Stanley because I knew some people there. But I think at that point, I knew I'd go back to Goldman, go to Goldman at some point. There's always that thing like, but they're number one. Like, I got to go to the best. But actually, I'll go to Morgan Stanley now because my friends are there, or a friend. And that was how I got into banking. It was to get money, to pay off my debts, to make my mum happy. Literally.
It was not like something, it was not a dream of yours to get into it. Wow.
No. My mum wanted me initially to be a doctor. Just me and blood, no. So I was like, doctor is out. I wanted to do something in science, astronaut, something like this. And again, she's just like, I think she's like, have a practical job, doctor, lawyer, accountant, like something like this. And I was like, I just didn't want to. So when I found banking and I sort of said to her, I'm going to be an investment banker. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, they pay well. She's like, okay, fine.
That's the answer, right? Because
exactly.
Honestly, I don't think like a lot of us younger like knew what investment banking is or what it kind of entailed, right? Your role, like, we talked about managing ultra high net worth individuals. What was like the day to day for you that you were doing?
Yeah, it depends. It depends if it was a day where I had client meetings or if it was a day if I was in the office. If it's a day where I had a client meeting and I'd be going to see a client, I mean, you go wherever the client is. So sometimes that means getting on a plane.
Wow.
Which I loved.
You enjoyed that? I mean,
it.
Yeah, okay. Fair.
Yeah, I loved it. Getting on a plane, like, depending, if it's short haul, then the seats are all the same. If it's long haul, business class, I love it. So depending on where we were going or where the client was based, you'd get on a plane, and you would go to see them. And this was even the same when I was at Morgan Stanley. Even I remember working on a mining deal, and we had to go to, I think it was Prague. And I remember my boss was like, we have a meeting. I was like, okay, what time is the meeting? It's like, well, the plane's at this time. Like, we're going there. Okay. That was when I first went into banking. By the time I got to Goldman, like, it's pretty commonplace that if you need to get on a plane, you get on a plane. Like, people get on a flight in the morning, you go see your client. So one of my clients was based in Ireland. So it's quite an easy trip. Yeah. In the morning, I get on a plane, I go over there. Sometimes I'd either meet them at their house or we'd meet somewhere else. We'd go for lunch. I would bring a printout, like a analysis of their portfolio, how their investments have been performing over, say, the last quarter, what decisions we'd made and why, what the outlook was for, or what Goldman's outlook was for the markets for the rest of the year. What changes might I make, that kind of thing. And we go through the portfolio, and then it's just, how else can we be helpful? I'd say that's one of the things that Goldman does really well. I was speaking to somebody recently, actually, that I've recently introduced to Goldman to become a client. And she was saying to me, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. They're so helpful. I'm like, I know, right? And I remember when I was thinking about my clients, sometimes I had to remind them I was their wealth manager. Sometimes they'd like call me, oh my gosh, Ayesha, my wife has done, blah, 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 or my daughter's done this, or this is happening. And in my head, I'm like, right, this isn't anything to do with money. So I'd be like, I'm not a, wedding planner, or I'm not a, marriage counselor, but maybe you might blah, 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 blah. So I think it's because when you're managing people's money, when they have given you their money and you are, investing it, investments go up and down. They trust you. When they have that level of trust that they're prepared to give you that much money, I mean, they trust you with anything at that point, which is why I think they felt comfortable to call and to be like, Ayesha, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it was nice to be that kind of trusted advisor. So just going back to your question, say would fly with this particular client, would fly over, meet him either at his house or meet him at a restaurant, have lunch, go through the accounts, talk about everything, just have a general chat, and then get the plane back and come back.
That sounds like a nice life. I'm sure people are listening to like, whoa, this is nice. I'd love to do this.
Yeah, you say that, but I think for some people it gets annoying, particularly when you have kids.
Because they can call you at any time. Is that
it's
what
not
happens?
That they can call you at any time. It's just that to try and fit all that in a day, I get home pretty late in the evening.
That's
but for
true.
me, it's fine. I don't have kids. I, had a boyfriend, husband, like that's fine. He worked in banking then too. So he's probably never home anyway. But when you have kids and things like this and you want to be around for them, it can be challenging. Like I know a lot of people in banking who have children have nannies.
Yeah.
There's just no other way. So I think it's great if you're single. But I think it starts to get a bit trying after a while when you're always on a plane.
Yeah. Especially like you say, you've got those kind of responsibilities. Did it start to wear on you? Like doing all that kind of travel? I mean, the way you lit up, it doesn't sound like
but I love to travel. So I didn't mind. And also I didn't travel that much, right? I covered UK and Ireland. So when I was at Goldman, it was based by region. So I sat in the UK and Ireland team, which meant all of my clients were UK and Ireland.
Okay, so
there was a South African team. They were always on the plane. In fact, they were never in the office. They were London based, but all their clients were in South Africa. So they were constantly just flying around. That's exhausting.
That is
Whereas for me, it's like, oh, I only have, say, 2 clients who are abroad. So yeah, I'm happy to make those trips. And then if it was like a day where I wasn't doing client meetings, it's either looking at portfolios, analyzing them, looking at investment opportunities that have come up, sometimes internal, sometimes just looking at like different fund managers we work with and trying to really understand the products and just staying on top of the markets.
Yeah. Becoming an executive director, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that's a huge deal at Goldman Sachs, which is like, it's an amazing deal, right? What mindset or skills do you think helped you to get there? Because not everybody achieves that if we're being very honest, right?
I think one thing that I've definitely learned recently is I'm always looking ahead. So I don't often take time to stop and appreciate just sometimes the things that I have or what I've done. So like to you, you're like, oh, you made it to executive director. The first thing in my head was, yeah, but I wasn't an MD or a partner. And then when we were talking before, you were asking me, what was it? It was something like, you manage this much, like, $500 million, that's so much. In my head, I was like, well, at Goldman, there are other people who had like 2 billion of assets, all 3. So yeah, $500 million is great, but it's not that much. I have this tendency to do that. I'm always pushing myself and looking for the next thing and the next thing. So I don't always appreciate what I've done. And sometimes it takes other people to remind me. So yeah, getting to that level at Goldman was an achievement, absolutely, and it wasn't without hard work. Goldman is an interesting place. There is a way of working at Goldman if you want to be successful.
Okay,
you have to learn quickly how it works if you are to be successful. I actually didn't learn that fast. So I was at Goldman for about 6 years. I'd say the first 2 to 3 years, no one told me. I thought, okay, yes, got this job. I'll go in, work really hard, keep my head down, just, work, bring in the clients, bring in the assets. And yeah, my career is going to thrive and I'm going to do amazing. That's not how it works. And it took me a couple of years to realize that. When I realized, it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, why did no one tell me? This is what I have to do to progress and proceed. Okay, I'm in. Like, I'll do what I have to do. I just need to know what I have to do.
Okay.
So once I figured it out, I was like, okay, let's go. And then from that period of realizing, I was promoted within 2 years. I knew it would happen because I said to myself, right, this is my next goal. I want to be promoted. So I remember having a chat with my manager at the time, and I said to him, there was a year, I think, where I should have been promoted and I wasn't. So I personally feel I should have got promoted the year before, and I didn't. And I was really annoyed. And I remember I went into his office and I said, you promoted these people. You didn't promote me. Okay, yes, I'm upset about it, but it's gone. It can't be changed. What do you want to see for me to be promoted next year? I want it spelt out very clear. He's like, you need to do this. You need to do this. We want to see this. We want to see this. And I said, just to be clear, if I deliver these things, I am going to be promoted. He's like, yeah. Done.
Okay.
Done. I knew I was getting promoted. I delivered. So when they're like, oh, you've been promoted. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I knew what they wanted to see, and I made sure I ticked every single box and then some. And then I'd have catch-ups with him every so often. I remember promotions coming up. Yeah. And to the point where I think once he even saw me, he's like, Ayesha, don't. I know what you're going to say. He's like, just don't, okay? Every time you see me, you mention the promotion. He's like, don't talk about it. So yeah, I think it's about being self-aware, being aware of whatever system you're in, understanding the game. It's a game. Understanding the game, understanding how it works, learning to not just play the game, but you have to excel.
Yeah. What? How do I ask this? Your work ethic, where does that come from? Because it sounds like you've got a lot of work ethic. And, not are you only ambitious, but you back it up. A lot of people are ambitious, but don't back it up with anything. They want to achieve a lot, but they don't because they don't put anything behind it.
Yeah, so someone asked me this recently. I think I like to work.
Okay.
Like I just they can't.
I think somebody's got to say it, right?
Like I think that's what it is. Like someone was asking me this literally the other day, and it was a weekend, and I was with my kids and my husband, and then the kids went to my mum's, and then my husband and I were together, and I was like, right, we can go out for dinner, we can go to a movie, or do something, or we can just work. And he's quite similar to me in that respect. So I said to him, oh, what do you want to do? It's like, we can do this, or, I've got some work to do. You have some work to do. He's like, yeah, let's do some work. I was actually quite happy. But I think it's because I also love what I do.
Right. Okay.
I'm not like that with any piece of work. So with Propelle, I love what I do. So I'm quite happy to do it on the weekends or in the evenings or wherever. I think in other areas where I haven't loved it as much, usually there's some kind of goal. There's something that I've set myself that I want to achieve. I'm going all out until I've got that thing.
Okay.
So with Goldman, I knew at some point that I wanted to leave, but I wasn't leaving until I'd been promoted, because I'm like, I'm not coming in here working for all this time and then leaving in the same position that I entered. Like, absolutely not.
Doesn't make no sense.
So I was like, there are certain things that I want to have achieved before I leave here. I want to be promoted. I want to have brought in this many assets, this many clients. I want to, have earned this much, done this, whatever it was. I wasn't going until I'd hit my targets. So I made sure I hit them. And that's how I am with everything. If I set my mind to something, it happens. If I say I'm going to do something, it will happen. If it doesn't happen, it's because it was physically not possible. And if I can't deliver, then I just won't agree to do it. I won't tell you I can do it.
Okay. I really appreciate that. That is so cool. So for you, it's like setting a goal and then making sure that the goal is achievable for you and doing everything you can to achieve the goal.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm not even sure up front if the goal is achievable, right?
Yeah,
because
that's true.
you set a goal, you don't know, but I know I will do whatever is physically possible in order to be able to get to that goal, to reach that goal.
Yeah.
So, and I used to joke and say the only thing I couldn't do was be president of the United States because I'm not American. But I mean, everything else is possible. Like, I mean, it is, if you think about it.
Yeah. No, it's true. Most things are possible. Things that I think a lot of us have thought is not possible have become possible.
Pretty much anything is possible. It's about your mindset. It's about having a strategy to get there. And it's about finding the right people to help you. But pretty much anything is possible.
Yeah.
Like if I want to, I don't know, go to the moon, I'm pretty sure it could happen.
It could.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to build spaceships for that. Well, not to the moon, but they're doing like space flight, like just for the everyday person.
I think the moon will happen again, people. But yeah, they're doing like space flights and things like this. But again, it's about what I would do is, right, okay, plan, right. If I want to get there, right, who's going there? How do I get in front of those people? When I get in front of them, what do I have to show them?
Yeah.
Okay, right, I need to go and get those things because I don't want to get in front of them until I have those things. Like I map it out, I strategize, and then I get all the pieces of the puzzle together, and then you put the pieces together.
I know what it feels like when your business expenses keep rising, but your business income doesn't. From big ticket costs like staff wages, tax bills, and rent, to the smaller stuff that adds up fast. Card fees, event fees, software subscriptions, delivery charges, even your phone and internet bills. Running a business in 2025 is expensive, and it's not getting cheaper. Yet, so many of us leave thousands sitting idle in a standard business account, earning nothing, when that money could be growing effortlessly through business savings. That's like leaving your stockroom full, but never putting anything on the shelves. You got the goods, but you're not letting them work for you. So isn't it time your business funds worked a little harder for you? That's why I use Tide's Instant Save account. You can earn up to 4.22% AL variable on your business savings passively, FSCS protection up to £85,000, and you can open an account with just £1. This very minute, Tide is offering a £100 bonus for new members from our community who open and fund a Tide Instant Saver with £5,000 in the first 30 days. Just use the code SavvyWallet, plus for the first 6 months, you can earn up to 4.22% AL variable on your business savings. It only takes 3 steps to get started. Tap the link in the episode description, enter the code SavvyWallet, and let your money start earning while you work. New Tide members receive up to 4.22% AL variable. Interest rates are tiered with a top rate for balances over £1 million. New Tide members get these rates free for 6 months. After that, your Tide plans rates apply. For the full offer, T's and C's, visit tide.co/savings. Rate correct as of the 8th of May 2025. I want to ask you this because I'm interested in the mindset that you kind of did, especially you talked about, managing assets. That must have come with huge pressure. I know you said, 500 million, there was somebody else with $1 billion. That's still a lot of money. 500 million is not small change, right? So how did you stay confident making those high stake decisions? And what did that experience teach you about risk and building long-term wealth?
So I didn't actually find that aspect of the job pressurizing or stressful.
Okay.
I got to a point where I was fantastic at my job. I knew I was good at my job. I can put these portfolios together and these investments in my sleep. So that didn't stress me or cause me issues like, someone's got X tens of millions, whatever. I can do that. Like I know how to do it. I know how to do it well. So that doesn't cause me stress. What would cause me stress would be, how do I bring in more clients? Okay, yes, I've got to 500 million. How do I get to 1 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion? That's more the things that I would think about, not where are we going to put this person's money or how are we going to I got that. I'm good with that.
That's interesting, right? Because people would think, especially with the stock, was it you invested a lot of it in the stock market?
Everything, every asset class.
Every asset class.
Equities, fixed income, private equity, hedge funds, structured products. It was great. We saw so much. And some really just insane things. So it was great. I mean, I remember once, we also had PAs, so personal accounts where we could trade. And I remember, I'd done some silly things. But it was really fun. I remember putting in some of my own money and then buying call options on Russian banks in the middle of all the sanctions and everything. And people were like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, no. I see something. I know. But this was obviously with my own money. And I was doing it with money that some people, I don't know, play cards, go to the casino, whatever. I was like, no, I see something in here. And I remember it was such a it was just great. I made this trade. Everyone thought I was insane. Then the market moved against me and it almost got wiped out. And then it turned again. And then I made double my money. At that point, I should have sold. I didn't because I was greedy. And that lesson I have learned. I have learned that lesson. And then they're like, Ayesha, sell. This is wild. The fact that you've done this. They're like, no. I'm like, this is going to the moon. And then it crashed and burned. But even just being able to have the knowledge and the understanding to be able to make investments like that, I think is just really powerful. Because when you see more than just the sort of traditional stuff and you see how wealthy people are building their portfolios and the types of investments that they have and how they're putting them together, it's not just stocks and shares. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
not knocking stocks and shares. Like it's a great place to start. Like even I say to people, even wealthy clients, they have the boring stocks and shares, the funds and ETFs, everything else as well. Like that's the solid base. That's where you start. That's what everyone needs. But then it's about building on from that. And you do it in stages. Like you don't need to rush to get there. Some people aren't going to look at like maybe like investments up there. Maybe I'd say for majority of people, you know, stocks and shares, ISA, really great diversified fund is enough for most people. Some people might want to have a next layer. Maybe they want to start having some property investing or investing in startups or investing in later stage companies, private equity or other things. But you start at the base first. And it doesn't matter who you are. That's where everyone starts. Even with millionaire clients, billionaire clients, they all have the base too. It's just that they then do more complicated things on top.
Yeah. And we're going to talk more about some of the different asset classes. Definitely want to take your understand and having a diversified portfolio, because I think that's very interesting. You mentioned startups as well. If we got a bit of time, it would be great to learn a bit from your journey of dabbling into that and how you're kind of finding that.
It's my favorite thing right now.
That's what you were saying to me before. Yeah. So there's another debate, right? And you've probably seen this a lot where people talk about 9 to 5s, business. Oh, you can't. Actually, you kind of mentioned it. Oh, you can't get wealthy with 9 to 5 and stuff like that. But did you come across anybody that did manage to achieve that
wealth from a 9 to 5?
Yeah. Or at least use that to enable them to build wealth or anything like that?
First of all, does anyone work 9 to 5?
Not really. No. I mean, it's not these days. It's different. It's 8 to 4, 9 to 9, whatever.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
The only time I've seen people become wealthy from their job is when they also own shares. So if at the company, so like, let's say you go to work for a startup and you join early and like as part of your sign-on package, they give you some shares and then the company ends up doing really well. It's the shares that will make you wealthy, not your salary. Okay. People who join tech companies, loads of wealthy people I know made money from having shares at Google. Often like they joined, forgot about the shares, been at Google for a long period of time and then suddenly looked at them and was like, oh my gosh, like, look at that. Like, I've been here for 10 years and look what's happened to my stock. And so they become wealthy. Similarly with some banks, like you join, the more senior you get, a lot of people think, oh yeah, bankers get bonuses, they get bonuses. Yeah, most of your bonus is paid in shares. Right, so not in cash. So you need those shares to do well. But for some people, they do. And, you know, the more senior you get and the more you start to be paid, you get paid more and more in shares. If those shares go up, then you can become wealthy. But how many people make it to that level? It's not majority of the company.
Not a lot.
So it is a few people. So when people generally say to me, can you get wealthy from your 9 to 5? I say no. A few people can. But it won't be from their salary. It will likely be from ownership in the actual company. Yeah. And even then, it will be a handful of people relative to like how many people work at the company.
Okay. So let's say somebody's listening to this and to the 9 to 5. And I have a lot of 9 to 5 listeners.
Yeah.
I'm a 9 to 5er, and they're thinking about building wealth. What's the line of thinking they should be thinking about in terms of if they want to get there a bit faster?
Yeah, so you use the salary that you have and you put that money to work.
Okay.
I heard this thing the other day, and when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. It was something like wealthy people see their money as soldiers. They send them out to fight and to, make more money and bring it home. Whereas everybody else they're trying to save their way to wealth. And it doesn't work. You have to put your money to work. And you have to put it to work hard. That's the only way.
Yeah. It is the only way, because otherwise you're the one working harder. You're the soldier.
Exactly.
Right? If you want to be the chief, you want to be the commander, right?
Rather than you being the soldier, make your money be the soldier.
Yeah. It's true, because at the end of the day, right, it's all your effort. And you can do both, right? it could be making money for you, and then you could also still be making money as
absolutely.
well.
Like, no, you need the job because you need to feed money into those investments and those things. It's only, I say, when your investments get to a certain point where they're generating enough money that it's almost self-sustaining and can sustain your life and also sustain continual investing, then you might think, okay, well, I don't actually need to work. Do I want to keep doing this? But even then, I'd say you have to do something. I was having this conversation with my husband last night, actually. I went to a very good school, as I said. Some of my girlfriends from school are incredibly wealthy. And one girlfriend we were talking about last night she never wants for anything, has never wanted for anything her whole life. Whatever she wants, she can have it. But she doesn't seem happy.
Okay.
And what my husband and I were saying last night, like, you have to have purpose.
100%.
You have to have a purpose. You have to have something that you're working towards. Like, the end goal can't be money, because that is not, in my opinion, that's not going to make anyone happy. And so it's one thing to like want to build wealth and want to build wealth and want to build wealth, but what for?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It has to be tied to a goal. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it forever until you die. And then it's like,
and then even if you have it all and you have all the money in the world and you can do absolutely anything, like, you'll get bored eventually. You need a purpose.
I've often thought about that, the boredom. People don't think about the other side of it. Like, when you get it.
And my husband is very grounded. He reminds me, he's like, Ayesha, and when you get to that level you want, then what are you going to do? I'm like, no, I will do things. So like, I have this, I also wanted to study neurosurgery. So I think at some point I will go back and study. I want to put some money into scientific research, but into areas where I can actually contribute to the research.
Yeah.
So I'm like, at some point I will go back to study.
So you go back into your science background.
Yeah.
You see, but you've got purpose. You understand why you want to make money, because you want to push the needle on something, right?
For me, it's usually impact.
Yeah.
I want to have an impact, a big impact, and I want that impact to be lasting. So like with Propelle, it's empowering women to be confident to invest and to build wealth themselves. Yeah. Like when I think about the neurosurgery, I mean, the brain is an incredible thing. I want to learn more about it. Like, it's untapped potential. Is there anything that I can do to help advance that, particular area of science, for example? Yeah. Again, why? So we can have impact. Imagine if we could unlock more potential of our brains, just what we could do.
I mean, I think that's definitely going to be possible, right? So I wanted to know from you, right? Was there any, I think I probably know the answer to this, but was there any financial tools or strategies that, your clients had access to at Goldman that us everyday people don't have access to?
The strategies themselves are pretty vanilla. Really? I talk about them all the time. Yeah. In a sense that, and even like at Propelle, this is the core strategy we use because I saw it work so well. So it's called core satellite. So what you do is, in the middle, that's where you have what I call like your boring vanilla stuff. So your stocks and shares, your ETFs, your mutual funds, global, diversified, low risk, yada, yada, yada. That's where a big portion goes. Around that core, you have a satellite layer that's much thinner. This is where you will do riskier investing, but riskier investing generally means higher returns, because risk and return are basically two different sides of the same coin. You get paid a higher return for taking more risk. Yeah. So typically in that satellite layer, you might see things like startup investing or investing into companies, or structured products, structured products is basically a way for you to just put leverage into equity investments on the stock market.
Okay. Can you explain that? For layman terms, yeah.
How do I explain?
We gotta do this. You know this better than me. We jargon. We don't do the jargon. We gotta explain it. Yeah.
So most people, when they invest in the stock market, will say, right, I'm going to buy Tesla. I buy Tesla here at this point, and I will sell at some point in the future, and I hope it goes up. A lot of wealthy people play the stock market slightly different. And there are lots of different ways that you can do this. The umbrella term is called structured products, but essentially it's a way to give you access to more of the market versus the money you put in. So for example, let's say if I was going to invest in a structured product and I have £10,000, you can create or you can invest in structured products that are created such that my exposure is actually £20,000 worth.
Right. So it's double.
Yeah. So I've only put in 10,000, but my exposure is 20,000. So if the market goes up, I'm going to get double what I would have got if I just done it normally, because I've got that leverage.
Yeah.
I'm getting 2 times, right? But on the flip side, if things move away from you, they can go horribly wrong. However, there are really creative structured products that you can do. So, for example, there's some that I used to love called principal protected structured products. Kind of does what it says on the tin. The idea is that your principal, your initial money that you put in is protected. And worst case scenario, that's what you're supposed to get back. So it's sort of like, right, I'm going to put my money into this structured product. I'm going to get some leverage. So rather than getting like 1 for 1, which I would have got if I just gone into the stock market normally, maybe I get 1.5x. But if it all goes horribly wrong, my principal is protected, so I get my money back. So I really like those because I'm like...
Yeah, what's the drawdowns? What's the drawbacks to that then?
Yeah, so I think very little. So I love them. However, things still can go wrong. Like the bank issuing the structured product, what if they go bust?
Okay.
So there's always
so that's the drawback,
other things. But then for me, it's like, well, I would get mine from like an HSBC or an institution like that. Well, yes, there's still risk. HSBC could still go bust. But what is the chance of that happening? And there are other areas of risk in it. But from my perspective, you can reduce the risk to a level that is more sort of tolerable. But again, when I speak to people about principal protected structured products or structured products in general, they don't know about them. And that's because they're not available through the retail market.
Aren't they?
No.
Ah, okay.
And this is one of the things that frustrates me sometimes. I think I totally understand why the retail sector needs to be protected, because we've all heard horror stories about people selling different kinds of investments and people losing money. But I also believe there is a reason that wealthy people are able to keep getting continually wealthy, is because they have access to investments that other people don't have.
Yeah.
So for me, we shouldn't be banning people completely from certain types of investments. It's about how can we structure it and give them investments that have suitable risk embedded for this type of audience? Yeah. How can we educate them about the risks that are involved? And in some cases, let people decide for themselves.
Yeah.
Rather than, nope, you just can't have it because you're not classified as wealthy or sophisticated investor, so you just cannot have it.
Yeah. I suspect that losing money thing is a myth. Crypto is available, and look at the crypto market. That's crazy.
Hurts me. Crypto, like just free, anyone can.
Anybody.
It will get regulated. I'm very sure it will come at some point.
They let it go on for a long time.
Yeah. And there are principal protected structured products that people could have been getting that have more protection, but they can't get access to because they're risky. They are risky versus like other investments. But compared to crypto, and
there's penny stocks. I'm just saying, like, there are some bogus stuff that people can still, the everyday person can access, and you can lose your money.
Yep.
There's pump and dumps. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't see them protecting that. So I'm like,
but I guess from the regulator's perspective, like, there are so many different types of investments and instruments out there. To really go deep and say, okay, right, this group can have them and this group needs this.
Yes. It's tough. It's a tough job.
It's tough, but I do think some changes would make it fairer and easier for the mass market to build wealth.
Yeah. So going back to the core satellite, I really like that. So you said your vanilla, your boring stuff. Then you said around it,
your satellite layer. Core in the middle, satellite around. So let's say, I don't know, my core is 85% of my portfolio. So then my satellite layer is like 15-20%.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And
then even within your satellite, you might say, okay, within my satellite, I'm going to do properties and startups.
Okay. Huh. Okay, cool. This leads me nicely into my next section, which is turning your salary into assets, right? So I've got a question around here, right? If someone in the UK earns between 20k and 100k, where should they start to turn their salary into assets using the wealth building principle you've learned? So you mentioned stocks and shares, Ayesha. Is there anything else that they should think about starting
and
with?
if they're earning between 20 and 100?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a huge range.
It is a huge range. But the reason why I did do over 100, because that's the tax stuff. I'm not.
Okay,
there's a lot of tax.
But even
implications.
between 20 and 100 is a lot, because what people with 100K,
Can
what people at
put
100K are
in-
doing and what people at 20K are doing will be very, very
would be
different.
different,
So
yeah.
if you're closer to the 20 end, I'd say the first thing you got to do is making sure you're on top of your emergency fund.
Okay.
I still meet people who do not have an emergency fund. So in fact, I spoke to somebody recently, runs their own business, is doing quite well, but has no investments, nothing. And I was sort of like, okay, and what happens if something happens to your business? Then what are you going to do? And then they were like, yeah, I should do something. Yes, absolutely.
They say that, like, yeah, okay, I
Like,
should do
absolutely. Like, you have to have an emergency fund. You have to have that rainy day fund. You don't know what's around the corner. So I say first thing you need to do is save for your emergency fund. Once you've done your emergency fund, then it's starting to think about what are your financial goals. I'd say at the 20K end, you're probably picking one financial goal, just one thing to work towards. At 100K, you probably have a couple of financial goals and you can work towards more of them. You then separate out your goals into short-term investments and long-term investments, because the types of investments that you'll look at will be different. So if something has a longer time period, like it's years and years and years away, you can take higher risk with those things because you have time to ride out ups and downs. And generally speaking, the longer you invest, particularly in something like stocks and shares or like a fund, the inherent risk within the investment can come down. So for example, S&P 500, you invest for 1 month, they say the probability of loss, the probability of you losing your money is around 38%. You invest in the S&P 500 for 10 years, your probability of loss is around 2%. You invest for 15 years, it's 0.2. This is the same investment.
Yeah.
The only thing that changed was the length of time you've invested in it for, and that has changed the risk. And people typically classify like S&P 500 stocks and shares as risky. So if you invest in it, but you invest for the long term, like 10, 15 years, actually, your probability of loss is quite low. So anything that has a long-term horizon, you could potentially say, hey, I might want to put, this money in 100% equities.
Yeah.
If it's shorter term in nature, and for me, short term is anything, I typically say 5 years or less. Some people are like 3 years or less because 5 years is just too long. But in that sort of time frame, that money should be what I call short-term investments or cash. What do I mean by short-term investments? You can, for example, put your cash into something called a term deposit. It means that you're locking up your cash for a period of time. You can't access the cash, or you shouldn't, because if you access it during that time, there's a penalty. But if you leave your money in this investment for that period of time, you'll typically get a higher return than if you just sat in cash that you can access every day. So let's say, for example, you're not going to buy a house for 2 years. Rather than leave the money in your bank account, earning you, 4, you could put it in a term deposit for 2 years where you'll earn more than 4 because you're locking it up for 2 years.
Yeah.
If you know you don't need the money for 2 years, why not? And you probably shouldn't need it because you've got your emergency fund sat over there in cash. That emergency fund you can access every day.
Yeah.
But the short-term investments, things like that, longer-term investments, things that are riskier.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. I don't think anybody's mentioned term deposits on the podcast. I like that as a gem, especially for the shorter term.
Yeah.
one,
If you know that you've got a goal that's like that time, but you will absolutely need the cash, don't invest it.
Yeah.
Because when you invest, your capital is at risk. Yeah, we hear that phrase all the time, but it's true. So if you have a short-term goal, why would you invest that money? Because you're risking it. So put it in cash, but not just everyday cash.
Yeah.
Lock the cash up. Term deposit.
So I wanted to talk about assets, right? I read as well that, you mentioned that most of your clients build their wealth through property. I know also I mentioned as well that you're a property investor, right?
Yep.
Property's old age is a lot of people can build wealth through it. You can probably still build wealth through it. For people in their 20s, 30s, 40s today looking to build wealth, right? Aside from property, is there any other assets they should look at? So we mentioned stocks and shares. Is that what you would think if they were to balance it between those two in terms of trying to get to that goal faster?
My view is controversial to a lot of people. A lot of people think that if you were retail, as in everyday man and woman, not a high net worth individual or a sophisticated investor, you should just stick to very vanilla things. Again, the core satellite thing for me just makes sense.
Okay.
Why would you just have the core?
Yeah. So why would you just have the boring stuff?
Just only that.
Yeah.
Now, that is absolutely where you have to start. And I'd say for a lot of people, they may not get to the satellite layer because they either don't have enough capital or it just doesn't make sense for them. So you absolutely have to have the core. But if you've mastered the core, you have enough capital to start looking at other things, then why not?
Yeah.
As long as you make sure you understand what you're doing, it still fits within your risk appetite, why not? And there are platforms out there nowadays that allow you to get access to some of these things for small amounts. So like you can invest in startups on a crowdfunding platform. I think you can invest from £10.
Yeah, it's cheap.
So
I use some of them,
Yeah, like you can start to teach yourself, start to learn. Like no one's saying go invest £10,000 in that startup over there. Like a lot of people know that startups have a high failure rate. Most of them will fail, right? But so sometimes people say, then why the hell would you invest in a startup if like you've got like a 90% chance of losing your money? It's about having a portfolio approach.
Yeah.
So I love investing in startups personally. So what I do is, and I didn't start out this way. When I first started investing in startups, I mean, I was an idiot. I put £80,000 in the first startup.
No way.
I invested £80,000 in the first startup that I ever invested in. And I went bust. But it was, I had SEIS.
Okay, so you used it to
exactly.
tax back.
So
yeah, okay.
I only invest in startups if they are SEIS or EIS eligible.
Okay.
If they do not have it, I will not do it. I've only broken that rule once. I've only broken that rule and invested in one company that is not SEIS or EIS eligible. Otherwise, all my startup investments have that because I want that protection. So with SEIS and this first investment I made of 80K, and very early on, once I did all the paperwork, I got 40K back. So with SEIS, you get 50% of your initial investment back. So even though I had originally invested 80K, I got a check back from HMRC for 40K. So now I'm only 40K in. And then when it went bust, you get additional loss protection. So then I got more money back. So for me, it's like when I invest in a startup, if it's SEIS and I'm a high rate taxpayer, if I can think, okay, 70% of my money, worst case, I'm getting back, I'm only risking 30%.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you sort of say with the startups, right, I've got a portfolio, say, I don't even know how many I have now. I have quite a lot. But let's say there are 10 companies in my portfolio. I legitimately expect 8 of them to go to zero.
Okay.
But say the 1 to 2 that do well should go to the freaking moon and more than make up for all the ones that have gone to zero.
Okay.
And that's what's called having the portfolio approach. Like a lot of venture capital companies do that as well. And so when I'm investing in startups, I have that mentality for myself. I run it like a mini VC. Right. I'm expecting most of these to go to zero, which are, you still only back the ones that you think are going to do well. So I'm not saying you deliberately back a company that you think will go to zero. That doesn't make sense. So you do believe in all of them, but even then in reality, most of them will fail.
Yeah, belief and, like you say, actual financial returns is not
exactly
doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
And then you're looking for those outliers to make up all the lost money and then give you return for everything. And so far that strategy is working for me. I can already see the outliers in my portfolio. One of the companies that I invested in very early has just raised a Series B.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So talking about the portfolio approach, right? So you mentioned investing in one. So now when you say portfolio, how many are you looking at? Is it instead of investing in one, I'm looking at 10, 5?
Yeah. So I think it depends on how much money you want to start with, right?
Let's say something simple for the everyday, 1,000.
Okay. Let's say you have £1,000.
Yeah.
Rather than put £1,000 into one company, and then you've only got the risk of that one company, why don't you put I don't know, £100 into 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Or £200 into 5.
Okay.
Because you're spreading your risk.
Yeah.
You're spreading your risk. You still have exposure to the sector. The 5 that you have invested in, you believe in them all equally, but most of them won't do well. But the idea is that 1 or 2 of them will.
Yeah.
But you always, when it comes to startup investing, you always have to be prepared to lose the money.
Yeah.
If you cannot lose the money, do not invest
put
it in
your money in
startups.
there.
Just do not do it.
Yeah.
So I go in knowing that I may lose this money. And when I say lose, because it's SEIS and EIS, I'm not losing all of it, but I may lose the majority of this money. If you are okay with that, then startup investing is for you. If you are not okay with it, then don't do it.
Yeah. But then again, following the approach that you said, they shouldn't get to a stage where they're putting in money they can't afford to lose, because if we look at the portfolio that you said, right, your core's 85%.
Yeah, so this is in the satellite. This is in
right.
that extra bit of money that
It's
you're like,
extra money.
do you know what?
Yeah.
I'm prepared to take risk and really aim for those
Exactly.
bigger returns. But I
Exactly.
get that this might go to zero. But it's not, it's a little tiny portion of your money.
Yeah.
The bulk of your money is in safe, steady, boring vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope people are listening and hearing this, because, sometimes I feel like when people hear things, they get the wrong idea of what we're trying to say or what the guest is trying to say, right? You've clearly said you've got your core, and then of the 15%, even that is even diversified.
It might even be
more.
less than 15. Some
Yeah.
people will have a core that's 90
Yeah.
and then a satellite layer that's 10.
Yeah.
Wealthy people do this too. You might think that, they've made so much money, they're investing in that risky thing. No, the majority of it, when you're trying to, you don't want to lose it. It's that core in the middle. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, but it still delivers.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, when I say boring, I don't mean that it doesn't do anything, it doesn't give you a return. Like typically they say that the long-term return from the stock market is 8%. That's decent. Do you know what 8% compounded over 10, 20, 30, 40 years can do for you?
A lot.
Yeah. Like this is a reason why ISA Millionaire is a thing. Like you can make money doing this. It just takes time. So when I say boring vanilla, it's still making what I call good money for you. Yeah. It's just not shoot the lights out money. But with shoot the lights out money comes shoot the lights out risk. So you have to be prepared to weigh it up.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've been following what's going on with Trump tariffs, right?
Oh, man, yeah.
Which is crazy. A lot of people have been talking about it. I wanted to ask you this question. If you were at Goldman's right now and this was happening, what kind of conversation
would I
you
be doing?
having with your clients?
What's the word? How do I describe it? Reduction of panic. So normally when the markets tank or there's something going on that is likely to bring instability, or we're not exactly sure 100% how things are going to play out, or if it's in Trump's case, he decides something today and then changes it tomorrow, people panic. And most of our job, or my job at that point, is just to keep them calm. Because when you panic, you're more likely to make bad decisions. So you have to remain calm and as level-headed as possible. And also we would remind clients that that's why they had us in the first place. Like, this is my job. My job is to stay level-headed and to guide you through this time. Some listen, some don't.
Yes, of course, as usual.
But I'd say it really depends whether or not you think something is a structural shift. The general rule of thumb is you don't change your asset allocation unless you have a life event or unless there is a structural shift in the way the financial services markets is operating. So the question is this a structural shift?
Okay.
If it's a structural shift, then we might need to do something. If it's not, and it's actually relatively temporary in the grand scheme of like a 10, 20-year investment portfolio, he's supposed to only be around for another 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
Yeah, like...
Just under 4, yeah.
Should we be making changes? And right now, I hear people in different camps.
Yeah.
I think we still need to wait and see what happens. My personal opinion is that Trump likes to be liked.
Okay.
He likes to be liked. He likes to make money for himself. And he likes his friends to make money. I don't think he would do something that would obviously go against that for the long term. He would definitely do it for the short to medium term if there was something else he's getting. There's something else he's gaining. He's very self-serving. So there's always I always think when he does something, what's he getting?
Yeah.
There's got to be something else at play here. Why is he doing this? What is he getting?
Yeah.
Because if he does something and it seems on the surface that it's terrible, everyone hates him, everyone's losing money, okay, he may not be the smartest tool in the box, but in his mind, there is a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's doing it. If you can try and have a guess at what that is, then I think it helps to be like, okay, do I need to do something, or actually this is just temporary because he's doing this because he wants that to happen?
Yeah. What does a structural shift look like to you when you mention that? I'm very
a structural
intrigued.
shift.
Yeah. What does that mean? Or can you describe something similar in the past? That's
like the big one is like, when they changed the gold standard and things like this. But I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Let me try and think of something more recent. I think there was I think you can say there was a structural shift around sort of 2008 in terms of how, like the changes that were made in terms of, all the things that caused the 2008 financial crisis in the first place. So all of these subprime mortgages and all of these things. There were fundamental changes to the way the financial system worked.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I see that as like a fundamental shift. So
before that it was like apparently 100% mortgages at that point.
Yeah. I mean, there were crazy things happening.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. Like there's been a shift, like something big changed.
Okay.
Although like every now and then you hear, oh, so-and-so is trying to do 100% mortgage.
Yeah. They're confident again, isn't it? Right. We can't fail now. Yeah.
But even if it came back, it wouldn't be as
like
that. Like you wouldn't be able to sell it to absolutely everyone. Like there'd be a lot more regulation, I think, around it. Do we think what he's doing with the tariffs is a structural shift? Is it going to be like this forever? Are we now saying this is the new world order? If you want to do trade, this is how it works. Or is it actually in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, he's going to change his mind? Or at the next election, someone else comes in and undoes it all? Or are we saying, is this the new thing?
Yeah.
Because let's say it's relatively temporary and the next person who comes in undoes it all, then it's a 4-year thing. 4 years in the grand scheme of investment is not a long time. So why are you going to make fundamental shifts for something that you expect to be around for just 4 years?
Yeah, that's true.
So if you think it's just 4 years, then you're not going to change big things. Yeah, you're not going to change big things. But if you're like, no, this is the new system, well, then that is a structural shift. The system has changed. Then we need to adapt.
Yeah.
I think it's still a bit too early to say.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I wanted to go back to startup investing, actually. A question I wanted to ask you. What's your criteria for what you invest in?
Yeah. So,
I want to know that.
I love talking about this. I invest in early stage startups. Okay. So what's called pre-seed and seed. So pre-seed is like when you have an idea in your head and you don't actually have a company yet. So it's literally like what the word says, pre-seed. You don't even have a seed.
Yeah.
A seed stage company is where you have something. You might have a prototype or you might have a customer or something early, but you've got a tiny little seed that you want to plant and to grow. I typically invest at those stages because that's where I can get the highest return.
Yeah.
But it's also the highest risk because at those points, I mean, in some cases, they don't even have companies. You're just investing in a person and an idea. So what do I look for? I look at the background of the founder. Not just do they have credibility? Do they have expertise? Are they the right person for this business? But have they got the hustle? Have they got that work ethic? Even before I started my own business, like I had a sense of what I thought it would be to run a startup. Now I do it for myself. I see some people who have fantastic backgrounds and great ideas. I don't care. I'm not giving you my money. You don't have that that you need. Like, I think you got to be a little bit crazy to run a startup. No, I'm being honest.
It's true. No, it's true. You got to be mad
you got
to put yourself through that.
You have to be a little bit crazy. And the funny thing is, I always say to my husband, yeah, but not me. I'm not crazy. I'm very sane. And then he says, Ayesha, like, most startups fail. Yes, other startups, not mine. And then he says to me, every founder thinks that. And I'm like, look, I know you say that, but really not mine. And he's like, oh my gosh, every founder says that. But of course, every founder has to believe in themselves and their business. But for me, you got to have that edge. There has to be something else. If I don't see it, then I won't do it. I've made mistakes in the past. As I said, my first investment, putting in far too much. I've invested in startups in the past because I was following VCs, like, oh, that big VC has put money in them and that big VC has put money in them, so I'll put money in. Terrible idea. Don't do that. Some people like to see it as an indicator, but actually what I've realized sometimes is they're not all over it. Sometimes, like, especially if they're a big fund and they've just put in a tiny little bit of money, that money for them is a rounding error. So they're not bothered about it. But because they have put the money in, the founder's saying, hey, this company, this VC has invested in me. Always ask how much. Because if it's a tiny little bit for them, then they probably don't care. So then the fact that they've invested, you shouldn't use that as something, a positive signal. So I generally don't try to be led by other investors anymore. I will completely strip that away and say, right, I'm looking at you as an individual. I'm looking at the idea. I'm looking at the industry. I'm looking at what you have that is unique. What's stopping somebody else coming and doing this tomorrow? And then I want to see the vision, like, where are you going with this? Where are you taking this? And not every company has to be big, right? Not everyone is going for the moon. You don't have to. I'm quite happy to invest in a company that sort of says, okay, our target is to get to, like, I don't know, 100 million, 200 million. Cool. Not everyone has to aim for the unicorn billion. You can still be a successful company at much smaller levels, in my opinion. VCs obviously disagree with me because a lot of them, it's kind of like unicorn or nothing. That's just not my philosophy at all. So
okay, wow, you got a lot of criteria. You got a lot of criteria.
Yeah, but when you do it often enough, it starts to become second nature. It becomes second nature. I can have a initial conversation with a founder, and I know now quite quickly whether I want a second conversation or not. I'm very good at the numbers, so I dig. So there was an investment I was looking at recently. I spoke to the founder. She told me, like, her high level metrics, and they were phenomenal. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is amazing. Yes. And then I looked at the revenue, and the revenue for the last 3 years has been very little. And then the revenue for the next year is $1 million plus. Hold on a second. How do you go from that to that in 12 months? Why now? It's possible, but then tell me how. How are you going to do it? If you've been doing this for the last 3 years, how are you now going to do this? If you cannot give me a compelling reason, then I'm out.
Right. So, so what was the answer?
A new business line, which is fair enough.
Okay. But it's not proven though.
That's what I said. Do you have a customer? Just one. Do you have even if you don't have an active customer, do you have a letter of intent from a customer? No. Well, then it's just an idea. So then, no, I'm out.
Just, you can't invest. Yes, you can invest based on that. Sorry. Yes, you can, but it's not for you. You want a bit more traction, and you want a bit more, like, actually proven revenue. Even like you say, even
proven revenue, because it's early stage, but just I need to know that you have a plan that's more than I plan to ask them and see what happens. Right. Like,
not using your money, right? So I wanted to ask a question around mindset. What's one unconventional way you've seen ultra high net worth clients invest in themselves that most people overlook, but can pay huge dividends over time, even for yourself as well? Things that you've learned. Because, I mean, investing £80,000, I mean...
That was stupid. I don't recommend anyone do that.
You got disposable money.
That was very silly. But yeah, I invested to a point where I could have disposable money to do that. I mean, I bought a very nice car. I started investing in startups and doing other things. Pre-kids. Now I have kids and school fees and all these things. So my disposable income is a lot less. What's one of the things? For me, I try to meet a lot of people, talk to them, a lot of business owners, and I try to understand their journeys and see if I can gain any insights. My view is that you don't need to recreate the wheel. If someone else has done something, even if it's a slightly different sector or whatever, but there is something that you can learn from it to replicate in your business, that's what you should do. So I try to avoid doing completely new things, which people sort of say, oh, but you're a startup, you've got to do completely new things. Yes, but you can take lots of little pieces from all these different companies and put them together and it's something new, but each individual piece isn't anything new.
Yeah.
And then each individual piece has been tried and tested because you've seen it there. So what I'm doing is putting it together, and yes, in this combination it's new, but I personally think it has a higher chance of success because each individual thing has already been tested rather than doing something completely new. So typically what I try to do is identify people that I want to reach and speak to them. And yeah, just ask questions and get insights into how did you do that? Or in this situation, what did you do there? And kind of put all these pieces together. So a lot of people get this from reading. So my husband reads a lot. Biography of this person, that person, that person. I used to be a big reader when I was younger, but reading doesn't really do it for me anymore. So I talk to people.
Okay. So for you, talking to people is what you think's paid dividends for you over time.
Because I invest in startups, I see a lot.
Okay.
So I might see a startup that has got phenomenal early growth. And I'm like, whoa, tell me how you did that. Even if I don't think the business will go anywhere because of some other reason, but that bit there, that was awesome. Tell me how you did that. Then I think, how can I do that for my company?
Right. That's amazing.
Or I'll meet a larger stage company where I'll speak to the founders and say, well, when you started, before you got here, how did you keep yourself going? Whatever it is. Sometimes it's about mindset. Sometimes it's about practical things. But I look for people or areas where it's already been done, and I try to see what I can learn and what I can implement.
That's amazing. And it's all about growth, and like you say, you can learn so much from people and just being on the ground and just soaking up knowledge. And sometimes you get those eureka. I get most of my eureka moments from speaking to people. I was like at an event, podcast show a few weeks ago, and a lot of things, even something that this thing came today that we're talking about, what's in the wallet. That came from a guy that I'm working with, just having that conversation. Ato, you need to have a thing on about everything has a podcast. And then started thinking about it. And then, but that would have never happened if we didn't meet at the event, right? So sometimes, it's
and you have to put yourself out there. A lot of people say like, oh, so-and-so is so lucky. So-and-so is so lucky. We all have luck. I believe. I said this to someone once and they got really upset with me because they fundamentally believe they're not a lucky person. But my belief is we all have luck. It's just about, are you putting yourself out there enough so that when luck shows up, you're there? And during my MBA, I did a class. My MBA, I finished it off in New York at Columbia Business School. And there was a class there called Napoleon's Glance. And it was teaching you they called it the art of strategic intuition. And so it was looking at like Napoleon, and why he was so good at winning battles. And what they say he had they call it the coup d'oeil. He could almost foresight, but it's strategic intuition. So the whole point of the class was to kind of teach us how to do this. And what they said is, to a lot of people who don't know, it seems like it's luck. Oh, that's a lucky person. No, it's not a lucky person. They've understood the places where they need to be and what they need to be doing so that when the luck shows up, they can take it.
Exactly. Yeah, you make your luck. And the luck won't happen if you're not doing anything for it, like you say. So I wanted to talk about Propelle, right? What inspired you to leave Goldman Sachs
Yep.
and build Propelle? And how is it uniquely helping women take control of their wealth?
Yeah, so leaving Goldman wasn't easy. It took me a while. I carried my resignation letter around for a while, and every day my husband was like, have you resigned yet? I'm like, no, I can't do it. Goldman is a family. It's very hard to leave your family. But what I realized is you never leave family, right? Even if you move abroad, whatever. So now that I've actually left, I go to Goldman a lot. Like someone said to me, you're always here, Ayesha. But I didn't realize that at the time. So it was very difficult for me to leave because I was sort of like, oh my gosh. And also I think my identity and my self-worth was tied up in my job. And so I was like, if I leave, who am I? You know, everybody looks at me and they see Goldman Sachs banker, like, oh my gosh, like she's doing so well. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, I resign and then I'm Ayesha doing what? Like, so that played on me for a while. And I was just like, I've put so much into getting here and to doing this, to building up the clients. It was hard. You know, when you start trying to convince people to give you tens of millions of pounds, like I'm a black woman, like all of my clients were white, like trying to get them to trust me, to give them their money. I did it for years. Then to walk away from all of that, I was like, what am I doing? But at the time I didn't realize it, but I felt it, like there was a bigger purpose, and I knew I had more to give. I knew I had more to give, and I wanted to do it in a way that would be more impactful. And I said to myself, I can stay here. There's politics, there are glass ceilings and all these things, and I know I can fight through them. But do I want to do that? I could take that same energy that I would need to break all those ceilings and put it into something else, and I can have bigger impact where I could help tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. Whereas right now, I have like 30 clients. I'm helping 30 people, 30 incredibly wealthy people. But I could help 30,000, 300,000, 3 million. Like, and so for me, it was about impact, purpose. I got to a point where I could do my job with my eyes closed. So I was like, what am I doing? Who am I helping? Okay, helping people who have lots of money get even more money. It just wasn't sitting right with me. Yeah. And so I came across the Japanese philosophy Ikigai. And so I sort of mapped out my 4 quadrants. So it's like, find something you're good at, find something you like to do, find something the world needs, and something that you can be paid for. Yeah. And I literally remember like putting lots of things in there. No, that doesn't work. Start again. This one. Oh, no, that doesn't work. I was like, well, I love what I do. I help people build wealth. I know how to do it. Goldman think I'm very good at it. So it needs to be something around there. Okay, what does the world need? Does the world need rich people getting richer? No. Well, there is a big wealth divide. Okay. So then I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And then I started to think about where the need was. And then I was like, okay, well, at Goldman, most of our clients were men. And then across the board, a lot of the clients are men. Or where are the women? And so I slowly pieced it together. And I was like, no one's doing anything for women. And when it hit me, I was like, that's insane. And then the more I started to look at the data and the things, I was just like, how can this be? Women have money, which is great at saving, not investing, but saving isn't enough. Like there are so many women who will get to retirement age and just not have enough money to see them through to the end of their life. Exactly. Like, or they might even think, and this is women who have workplace pensions, by the way. So they're just like, oh yeah, I got my workplace pension. It'll be fine. That will sort me out. And I always say to people, go find your workplace pension. Go and get that piece of paper. It will tell you what it expects you will get at retirement. Have a think about whether that number is going to be enough for you. It will not. The state pension, I mean, my mum is coming up to retirement age this year. She's so funny, bless her. So I saw her on the weekend and she says to me, oh, you know that I'm coming up for retirement this year. So I was looking into my state pension and she's like, can you believe these people said they're going to give me £900? And she says, yeah. And she says, and my mum has worked since she's 18. She's like, oh, I'm calling them. I was like, why are you calling them? She's like, well, obviously they've made a mistake, Ayesha. How can they be giving me $900? I'm like, no, mum, they haven't made a mistake. This is how the system works. It is not enough. And she's like, no, but this is, I know, Mum, there is a huge problem. This is the problem. The state pension is not enough. It will not help you. On top of that, workplace pensions for a lot of people are not enough. You have to do something for yourself. And the earlier you do it, the better, because if you wait until you get to that retirement point and you haven't done anything, you're screwed. Yep. Now, lucky for my mum, she has a fear of debt. So she was paying off her mortgage all along. So she basically owns her house outright in cash, which is, for me, wild. Because I'm like, why would you? She literally, it's like just living in a money pile. Like, why would you do that? I would rather have a mortgage, take some money out, and like have a great life. So for my mum, her house is her pension. She's actually a very wealthy lady, but she doesn't see it like that. She's like, what do you mean I'm wealthy? Where's the money? Well, you won't take it out the house, but it's literally, you can knock on it and touch it. This is your wealth.
This is your wealth, yeah.
And it's worth quite a lot. So I'm like, you're actually a very wealthy lady. So like, stop like pretending. Like, oh, like, this is tough and that is tough. To some extent for her, it's how she chooses to be, because she won't free up any of that capital. But as I said, she has a fear of debt. But for a lot of people, what if you don't have that house? What if you don't have that house to fall back on? What do you have? And the thing about it is, it's easy to solve. Just start investing as early as you can. Doesn't have to be anything complicated or sexy. Remember, core, boring, vanilla. Yeah. So when people say to me like, oh, I can't invest. What do you mean? You can open an ISA for £1. Do you have £1?
That excuse ain't gonna run anymore.
No, exactly. But I think for me, it's just about trying to reach as many women as possible, as early as possible, giving them the confidence, giving them the tools, and giving them access to investments that I think are good and decent. So like with Propelle at the moment, our big thing is ISAs. So we work with Vanguard, BlackRock and HSBC, and we offer a selection of their funds. That's what we have at the moment, but I have plans. I have plans.
Going on to my next question. So how do you see Propelle evolving in the next few years, and how are you trying to further empower women financially?
My ultimate dream would be able to help women do that satellite layer as well. So right now we're helping them do the core. I would love to be able to bring different types of investments. The investments that I have in mind, we will have to work with the FCA. To get licenses, get them comfortable to be able to do this. So it is longer term, but that is like my ultimate thing, to be able to have one platform where you can get your vanilla stuff, you can get your satellite layer as well, whatever those other investments are. It's never been done before. Most platforms are either alternatives or traditional, whereas I kind of want to bring it all together. Let's see. We will need to work closely with the regulators to get it done, and it's not something we started yet. But also just expansion, like across the UK, but also geographic as well. Like we have women reaching out to us like, can I use this in South Africa? Can I use this in Portugal? Can I use this in Saudi Arabia? And I'm just like, okay, there is already like interest around the world. So there's a lot to be done.
Amazing. Look, you've done such an amazing job. You should be really proud of yourself for building like an amazing platform. If you haven't checked out Propelle, make sure to go and check out Propelle. Ladies, you know where it is. Fellas, tell your wives, your sisters, your mothers.
We have some men as well. Like we're built for women.
Okay.
But we're open to all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just say, because even because I'm into investing, so I have the investing conversation with my wife a lot.
Yeah.
And I get her interested in, and I'm trying to also get her to have the conversation with her friends. Because once you have it as a normal conversation, then you all become comfortable.
You need to make it part of your everyday.
Exactly.
So you got to talk about it every day, and it needs to become a natural thing.
Exactly. It's like going to the gym, right? If you've got people to go gym, you're more likely to do it. If it's by yourself and it's solitary, you're like, you have to be really interested. But if there's a community, then it makes it a lot easier for you. Okay, so we've got a new segment of the podcast, right, that we're going to start. And I've told people, I think I announced it on YouTube. So we're going to call it What's in the Wallet. So we've got a question actually from from a subscriber.
Unplanned, all right?
Yes. What's in the wallet? It's cool. I know. I thought of the idea. So this is a question from subscribers, and please do submit your questions. It possibly will get answered in a future episode. So this was an interesting question. I don't think I would have thought up. So they said you have 100,000 on premium bonds. What are you doing with it?
Okay, so I wouldn't have 1,000 in premium bonds because
100,000.
Okay, I wouldn't have any money in premium bonds because I think there are so many more places that are better to put your money. But anyway, if I had money in 100,000 in premium bonds, I would take that money out of premium bonds. I would put it in, for me, the stock market, or maybe not even all of it. Again, going back to that core satellite, it depends on the rest of my portfolio. But for me, premium bonds just aren't moving the needle enough. Like, you remember, your money is a soldier. It has to work. So I will put it in a Vanguard fund or a BlackRock fund.
Okay.
Something like that. Maybe keep a little bit for startup investing just because it's my thing.
How much of the 100,000 would you keep for startup investing?
20.
Okay.
Yeah. So 80 into vanilla fund and then, 20, but split across lots of different startups.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ayesha. I really enjoyed this conversation. We learned so much. We talked about so much. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Instagram. So you can follow me on Instagram, just Ayesha.Ofori, or on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Like I said, I appreciate all of your wisdom and you sharing your journey. It's been such an amazing journey. And the fact that now you're doing something that's more impactful in the world is really going to narrow a gap. I think it's very important, especially investing. Investing is, I think nowadays we have so much useful information and the barrier to entry is so much lower. So really we should be trying our best to.
There's no excuse.
Yeah.
And
anymore.
I think sometimes people think, wealth, I can't build wealth. I can't be wealthy, or I can't do this. There's nothing stopping you. If you're not doing it, then you are stopping you.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you have any final words for watchers and listeners?
Just do it. I mean, as Nike said, just do it.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the podcast. See you next week's episode.